Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Sam Roberts Wrestling Podcast.
We're now joined. The NXT champion of the world is here with us, Kevin Owens. Kevin, what's the haps?
What's the haps?
That's right.
Wow, that's a new. I've never heard that one before. Not much. How are you guys?
We're great. We're here in Philly. It's NXT Day.
Does it ever get any better than being in Philly?
I don't think so.
NXT Day?
Well, do you know? I mean, you know Philly audiences probably better than anyone on the NXT roster, with the exception of maybe Sami Zayn and Finn Balor. How do you feel coming into Philly, knowing that it's an NXT show? Are you secure in that they're gonna love what you do, or are you ready for a negative response?
You know, Philly crowds are always pretty interesting when it comes to this because, you know, they're rowdy all the time, and you really never know what to expect. The only thing you can always count on is them being rowdy, being loud. But as far as which way they're gonna which way they're gonna go, who they're gonna like, you know, it's always kind of a crapshoot a little bit. Like last night, you know, I had a pretty good feeling that, you know, me, Tyler Breeze, Finn Balor, you know, our three-way match will be well received. But like the coolest part for me last night was seeing a guy like Ty Dillinger, who hasn't really been featured on NXT TV and hasn't been exposed a lot to the, you know, NXT crowd. To see him come out as a relative unknown and turn them, and by the time he left, he had a, you know, superstar reaction. I thought that was pretty cool, and you know, that's the kind of stuff that Philly crowds are great for. You know,
we look at the Rumble though, and that was pretty unexpected. And you worry ever about being in a crowd like this, knowing they're more of an ECW type crowd, and what the expectation is going to be.
See, some people can see it as a worry, but to me, any emotion is, especially when it's this raw and this, you know, like the Rumble crowd was very erratic and obviously very emotional, and, you know, it was loud and it made for great TV, regardless of what anybody's going to say. Yeah. It made for great entertainment, you know? So I feel like there's some crowds like that, you know, Philly, Chicago, Toronto, Montreal, like there's a lot of crowds in New York, obviously, that, you know, you can always count on that for. You don't really know which way they're going to go, but you know it's going to be something you have to see, you know? So, like the Rumble crowd, for example, it's not so much worry, it's more, you got to, you know, which way are they going to go? But you know it's going to be a great time. You know it's going to be a very involved crowd. And, you know, that's kind of the way I felt about NXT last night. And but to see them give the reception and the reaction that they gave us to our product, like NXT is what we've been building, like our crew, you know? It's like a little family. To see them receive us this way, I mean, it meant a lot. And, you know, everybody in the back was so happy, and tonight's going to be even better.
You're in Philly 2 nights, obviously back to back. What did you take? Give me an example of something from yesterday that you're going to tweak, knowing the crowd from last night. I
mean, I might sound a little arrogant on my end, but I don't think I've got anything to tweak or change.
It's a good place to be.
I mean, you know, I'm still the champion after last night, so I'm just going to go same way and walk out the champion, and it's going to be fine. You know, tonight I've got the demon, you know, Finn Balor has been insinuating that he's going to come out with the paint and everything. I guess, you know, the whole situation kind of changes when he's got that going on. I've never been in the ring with him when he had that whole demon side coming out, but, you know, I think I'll be all right. You know,
yeah, I think aside from him being a little more slippery because there's paint on him, you'll probably be...
I assume I'll be...
Good point, Sam.
I'll probably have, like, paint on me as well after, you know, but it's okay. I'll deal with it.
You wrestled, I mean, around the world for years, independently, internationally, to the point where people knew who you were. Mm-hmm. Was being here in NXT, in WWE, was it inevitable, or was it something that by the time you got here, were you of the mindset, if it happens, it happens, but I'm fine if it doesn't?
I think I told myself that a lot, that, you know, if it happens, it happens, but if it doesn't, it's fine. Right. But, you know, I have other things in my life that make my life very complete. I have a wife. I have 2 great kids. I have a great family. So, you know, in a sense...
Whoa.
Keep it down a little? No. In a sense, that statement is true. You know, if it happens, great. But it was always my dream, it was always my goal. And at one point, I thought maybe it wouldn't happen. And I was okay with that because I had my wife and my kids, and I had, you know, things that fulfilled me. But then when the opportunity came up, like there was no thinking like, oh, should I do this? It was, we got to go. We got to do it, you know. And even my wife was like, you got to do this. So it definitely feels great to be here, especially being a part of NXT and like what we're building and seeing how quickly it's growing every day. That's an awesome feeling, and I'd be lying if I said that, I would have been fine if it never happened.
You've brought your family into the storyline, obviously, quite a bit, and years.
That's the thing. I didn't bring them into the storyline because they are who I am. I remember I was sitting with Dusty Rhodes when I first got to the Performance Center, and I was brand new, and they didn't know me. Nobody knew me. And we basically sat down, me and Dusty, and it was recorded just so that they would get an idea of who I was. And it was just us talking. Like, it wasn't a promo, it was nothing. It was just me talking to Dusty Rhodes so that they could have a sense of who I was. And Dusty just asked me a couple questions, and within a minute, I was talking about my kids, I was talking about my wife, I was talking about my family, because they are who I am. Like, if I'm not in a ring, I'm thinking about them. I'm talking to them on the phone. If I'm not home, you know what I mean? Most family people, like people that have families, like my thoughts always revolve around my kids and my wife, and I think they saw that in me, and they probably decided to use it just because it's the biggest part of me in a way,
But what's great about it is kind of the story of Kevin Owens in NXT is he's a guy who will stop at nothing to be the best because he wants to provide for his family. And while people listening to you that don't know you now are like, oh, what a sweetheart, he loves his family. For the first time, I feel like the idea of being a family man is being used to present you as a villain, as a bad guy who is not worried about friends, is not worried about any of this stuff because he wants to provide for his family. That's the spin on it that I think works.
I think it's all relative. I don't, I turned on Sami Zayn, who's been my friend for years, and I took a moment from him that he had been working for a very long time. But at the same time, there's always another side to every story. I've been working for this a long time. I like you said, the better I do here, the better I provide for my family, and that's 100% true. If I know there's an opportunity coming up that will get me, more money, the first thing I think of is, oh, maybe I can get Owen this, or I can get my wife this. That's just how I feel. That's just how I am. And, I do, Kevin Owens does what he's got to do to ensure that he can take care of his family.
That's probably one of my favorite lines as of late is, you get the belt, you get more money. Is there truth to that?
It is true. I can attest, yeah. As soon as I won the belt, I had a little meeting with the powers that be, and a nice little raise came along. So
and you won it right away, so that's good timing.
2 months in, so yeah. And I'm not a patient person, so it all kind of worked out great.
Did you have that in your head going through? You're like, okay, I'm leaving the indies where I'm making real money. I'm leaving, international travel where I'm making legitimate money. You're making a living wrestling already. Mm-hmm. Like, do you go in when you negotiate this saying, okay, but I'm not one of these guys that's going to be spending a year in developmental, and then I'll make TV in a year and a half, and then I'll was it assumed that you'd be on an accelerated pace?
No, I didn't worry about any of that. And I wasn't promised anything. I was told you're going to get the same opportunity everybody gets. You're going to work your way up, and we'll see. And I didn't ask for more money than other people would get. I didn't ask, well, how long am I going to be in NXT for? I didn't ask any of those things because in my head, one, I could see NXT is starting to gain steam before I even came in, and since I came in, and Hideo Itami and Finn Balor and everybody, it's grown exponentially. But even before that, it was already gaining steam. So in my head, being in NXT sounds pretty good. And as far as money and all that stuff goes, I truly believe that I would be able to show people what I deserve and what I'm good for and what I can bring. And I knew, from talking to a lot of my friends that already work here, that when you perform, you get back. And I knew I would be able to make that happen for myself, and so far I have.
What was it like watching the Seth Rollins and the Daniel Bryans and the Sami Zayns and this whole class of guys that you had worked with get here before you? Was there a moment in your head where you're like, oh my God, it's passed me by, it's not going to happen?
It was really odd because I would go from thinking that maybe it wouldn't happen to knowing that it would eventually happen. And I'd have literally days where in my head I'd be like, all right, this might not happen, you got to accept it. To the next day I'd be like, no, this is happening, And then I'd see like Neville and Sammy and Bryan and Rollins. And I remember one specific instance a couple years ago when I was watching NXT and Neville was on. because back in the day, a couple years ago, before the network came along, NXT would play on the Score back in Canada, on TV. So I would watch it every week. And seeing Neville wrestle, as proud as I was and happy as I was for him, it really upset me, I remember. And for about a couple months, I couldn't watch it anymore because I felt like, I guess I was getting passed by.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like I feel like I should be there too, like how come they haven't contacted me? It was almost more of a thing where I would look in the mirror and think, what are you doing that's not working, or why haven't they come to me? And it wasn't like, can't they see what I do?
Right.
It was more like, what am I doing that's not getting them to, you know what I mean? But eventually the right person saw me at the right time, and it all worked out. And, I remember that moment a lot. And I remember last year's WrestleMania 30, I bought a ticket. And I came to the show by myself.
Wow.
And I sat and I watched Daniel Bryan beat Triple H in the opening match. I watched Daniel Bryan win the world title. I watched Cesaro win the Battle Royal. And I always remember, because from where I was sitting, he tossed out Big Show on my side, and the entire crowd behind him stood up and went crazy. And in my head, I was like, I have to have those moments, I have to have this. So
it's just a different level of
from
of
that
this.
day, I remember that night, I thought it's the last time I go to a WrestleMania without WWE bringing me to WrestleMania. And a year later, I was at WrestleMania, and I was watching as the NXT champion, and I was there because the company brought me. So that was a great feeling. But
what did the people sitting around you at WrestleMania 30 think of the fact that you were there?
So when I sat down, I kind of scanned the area, and I didn't think anybody recognized me. And then after about 20 minutes, the guy next to me looked at me and said, "Are you Kevin Steen?" And I said, "Yes." So then for the next hour or two, I spent some time with this guy who's pretty happy to have me next to him. And,
Sure.
And it was nice. He was a cool guy, and it was cool to watch the show. And eventually I ended up, moving somewhere else to have just a better view of, the main event. But I don't know, it really put things in perspective, That's, I guess, in my head, I was like, this is the last night I come to WrestleMania as a fan.
Yeah.
And I think it helped me get here now.
Yeah.
That motivation, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because you want to go to WrestleMania.
Yeah, I mean,
You don't want to just sit at home and be like, out of spite.
The thing about me is I'm a fan still,
Yeah.
Nights like last night and seeing, like I mentioned, Dillinger win the crowd over, I was a fan when that happened. And I'm still a fan, I was at WrestleMania 31, and when The Rock came out to confront Triple H and Stephanie, and Ronda Rousey hopped the rail, and in my head, I'm a fan. When Seth Rollins won the World Heavyweight title, I was going crazy, just like every single person there, because I am a fan. But now I'm a fan who gets to work for this company and who will eventually create moments like that. And that's just, I don't know, it's a great thought,
When you come in as Kevin Steen, and people obviously know who you are, like we were just talking about, they recognize you. Was there any argument of saying, I'm just going to come in and be Kevin Steen, I'm going to look like Kevin Steen, I'm going to dress like Kevin Steen, I'm going to act like Kevin Steen? Why wouldn't you just let me call myself Kevin Steen?
No, because in a way, everybody that's followed me for years, and I knew this from the fan base that I've had, and the years I spent on the independent scene, I knew they would follow me and I knew they'd support me. When we were thinking of the new name, it was just in a way
to mark. Son?
Yeah, it was to mark the beginning of a new chapter. We got to get a new name. And I toyed around with a couple names, but ultimately, I was a big Owen Hart fan as a kid, which is why I named my son Owen. And when it was time to pick a new name, I suggested Owens. Triple H actually suggested Owens as well. So we were, on the same.
That's a really good place to start.
And then, try to find a first name, and I don't know. Triple H ultimately said, "Well, why don't you just be Kevin Owens?" And that sounded great to me. So here we are. And honestly, at this point, I can't imagine myself being Kevin Steen here. Like, I am Kevin Owens.
Right.
You know what I mean? And to see the smile on my son's face anytime, you know what I mean? Like, he knows it's for him. And he understands that his name is a tribute to another wrestler named Owen Hart, who I was always a big fan of. And he's watched Owen Hart matches and stuff like it's all a very nice. It all has such a positive connection for me that I can't imagine myself being Kevin Steen.
It's not just a made up name.
Yeah.
Your son's been in the ring too.
He has,
How old was he when?
He was 5 months old.
5 months he makes his debut.
Yeah, that was fun.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it was good. It was just.
Is he coming back in at any point?
I mean, I think he intends to. Yeah, in a couple of years, I think he's going to be there. He, he loves it, and It's a big John Cena fan, which I guess I'm going to have to address eventually. But, no, I think he's going to end up. And if not for him, honestly, my daughter, she's only 1, but she kicks my butt already. So
get her in there.
What did your son do at 5 months?
So it was a PWG in California. We had finished our match, and I was teaming with this guy, El Generico. We were victorious, obviously, and my wife was sitting with the baby in the back of the room, and one of the announcers started mouthing off to me in the ring and basically called my son ugly, which is a big no-no. So I took him out, got him down, and then the first thought was he called my son ugly, so he's got to get the pinfall. I rolled out of the ring. I went to get my little 5-month-old son, rolled him in the ring, put him on top. The referee made the 3 count, huge pop. And then, for a second I had to hand him off to Generico so that I could get out of the ring and take him safely. And, I felt a little uneasy about handing off my child to El Generico, but he did all right for that 1 minute. And then, that was it. Now it's all over the internet. It's on DVD, and it's going to live on forever as his first victory.
What was the transition like getting here? Because, I've watched you do stuff in other places where horrendously dangerous moves, like pile drivers off of ladders onto ladders, and dropping people on their heads through tables. It's just stuff that doesn't happen in WWE. But I think the thinking on the indie level is, we got to give these guys a show. We got to give them something they haven't seen before. To go out there now and know that, we have to give them a show, but we're not doing any of this stuff. Is that a weird transition for you to make in your head?
It's actually great because on the independent scene, it's all about you're selling yourself to a crowd who might not know you or might know you, but ultimately you're working for yourself. When you get here, yes, you're trying to sell yourself and you're trying to get as far as you can as an individual, but for NXT in particular, we're all working towards the same goal, which is to make the NXT brand as big and as special as we can. So all those crazy moves and dangerous moves that you mentioned, there's a time and a place for stuff like that, I think. But right now, NXT is not it because what we're doing works great, and we're building a new audience still.
Right.
And I also think, people have to put things in perspective. When I was working on the independent scene, I was wrestling 2 or 3 times a week, and then, the following week I could have the entire week off. And then 2 matches here, week off, 2 matches there. Here we do this, on the main roster, especially 4 nights, 5 nights a week, every week, the whole year. That stuff just wouldn't fly because it's, you want people to stay as healthy for as long as they can. Not only for, the product to keep being successful, but you got to think of those people's quality of life, like the guys, when they're 50, when they're 60, they want to be able to walk around, enjoy their life that they spent years building, and you know what I mean, to benefit from it. But I think the crowds have become conditioned to that, and they don't expect us to go out and fall off a ladder through a table, and I love that part of it because
you don't have to fall off a ladder through a table.
Not having to do that is not bad.
That kind of speaks for itself. What do you think of where NXT is going? Do you want to stay in NXT and kind of be the face of it, or is it something where, okay, you kind of came in, you took the thing by storm, now it's ready to move on to the next thing?
I'm all about opportunities. When I came into NXT, I had this opportunity. I took it. I took advantage of it, and I made it work. And right now things are going great. But if I see an opportunity to get myself on Raw and SmackDown every week and on pay-per-view and on WWE Network and all that stuff, of course I'm going to take it.
Because that champion makes even more money.
Exactly.
Well put,
so,
Sam.
Yeah,
you talk about, though, your patience. Have you put a timeline on it for yourself?
I didn't. I don't know. I have a lot of faith in myself and what I do, and I think when it's meant to happen, it will happen. So I'm not thinking if it's in a year, if it's in 2 years, if it's in a week, if it's in months. I just don't think that way. I don't know. I didn't think that way when I got here either. Also, as far as patience, I'm not a patient person, but it legitimately took me 14 years to get here. So if it takes me another 3 to get to the main roster, I'm in NXT where right now we're thriving and everything's going amazing, and it's the hottest product currently in sports entertainment industry. So
is that an annoying question to be getting right now too?
No. No,
Do
not
a
at
lot
all.
of people ask you that about
I mean,
main roster?
I
It's
get it
kind
on
of like
Twitter
enjoy
all
the
the time.
moment?
I get it on Twitter all the time, but Twitter's so easy to either just
Oh,
ignore.
we don't have enough time to talk about the stuff that
I
we
mean,
all get
it's
on
easy
Twitter.
to either ignore or block, So I'm a big blocker.
Let's go back in your timeline. I think there was a really interesting gray area where you were kind of in between contracts. And did you ever have that moment where you thought maybe it just wasn't going to pan out? And do you ever go back to that place and kind of remember those? It was a very probably humbling time.
Actually, I knew I was coming here before my Ring of Honor deal was ever up.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, there was
convenient.
never. Yeah, there was never.
That's
that
very
time.
convenient.
Yeah, I knew exactly where I was going, so I never had that like awkward period.
Who took a liking to you here? Because you don't have the stereotypical quote unquote, WWE build. You don't look like the face of the company or whatever. You're very you. You have your own look. You kind of like Mick Foley did. He doesn't look like the guy, but he's good enough and fans appreciate him enough that he is. Who took a liking to you and said, no, look past that and watch this match and figure out that he can be this?
Well, the first person had to be William Regal. He came to a show in California at PWG in August of 2013. And, I knew he was there, and I heard he was going to come about a week before the show, and I think at that moment I knew it was going to happen. I knew literally like the chain of events in my head it was going to happen. He was going to see me. He was going to help me get in here, and, things would snowball, and that's exactly what happened. I remember telling my wife about a week before the PWG show, like, I think this is it. And she was like, well, what are you basing that on? What if he's just coming to have a good time and watch the show? I'm like, sure, but when he sees me, he's not going to be able to deny it. And I think I was right. I don't know if he was as gung-ho about me as I hoped he would be, but he saw enough in me to, help me get a tryout. Right. And then at the tryout, I did what I did. It worked out. As far as who took a liking to me, I mean, I don't know that, I don't know for a fact who likes me, who doesn't like me, but I think whoever does like me is obviously important enough to, to keep the ball rolling. I know I've been working with Triple H to become, I want to become what this company needs. I want to become what the industry needs so that I can keep getting higher and higher and
But at the same time, it's so do you.
Yeah,
right?
It's funny because I remember the first week I got to the Performance Center, there was this photo shoot at the Performance Center, to where they kind of just film you in the ring in your gear, and it's to use for whatever promotional material or the Titantron and stuff like that. And I didn't know who I was gonna be. I didn't know what I was gonna be. I didn't know anything, and I didn't have any direction. Nobody told me, well, here's what we were gonna do with you. There was none of that yet. It wasn't even a plan. It was just like, okay, you got to be here at 5 in your gear for these pictures. And I remember thinking, well, what's my gear?
Right.
Because at that point, I was wrestling on the independent scene.
Better figure it out.
I was wrestling on the independent scene in a cutoff T-shirt and shorts. And I was thinking, well, this is WWE. It's obviously not going to fly. So I had a singlet made or 2 singlets made. I think I spent over $1,000 in singlets. And then I put on this singlet and I looked and I was like, this isn't me.
Right.
I wouldn't pay to see this guy. And then I put on shorts and I put on a cutoff T-shirt that I had. I turned it inside out. It was a Guns N' Roses cutoff T-shirt. And I'm like, well, I can't go out there with a blank shirt either. And Finn Balor happened to be painting himself at the time, and I grabbed the paintbrush from him, and I painted some words on the shirt. And with the paint and the look, I came downstairs, and Chris Chambers, who was producing the stuff and kind of overseeing the production, was like, that looks really interesting. Like, this is really cool. And then in my head, I was like, oh my God, I think this is it. I'm just me.
That is low budget success right there.
I was like, why was I even worried about this? And then the night of my debut, they came out with this. They're like, this is going to be your shirt we're going to sell tonight. And I'm like, oh, can I just wear it out to the ring? They're like, yeah, sure. So
Can I have one of these? Or
got a pair of scissors. I cut the sleeves off, and here I am.
Yeah, I mean, that's how they signed you. So it's like, yeah, this is...
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was going to be an adjustment, and in a lot of ways it was. But at the same time, there's a lot of vindication that goes into the fact that a lot of people have told me you won't make it there the way you are.
Right.
And I did.
Was there a moment when you were like, I got to be clean cut, like this is not the look for them. I got to trim down, I got to be clean cut, I got to be, muscular and 8-pack abs and...
I never thought that because first, through genetics and just life. And
not gonna happen.
I don't think it's gonna happen. I work hard to be in as good a physical shape as I can, to go in the ring as good as I can, and I don't think anybody out there could ever say that I don't go in the ring. As far as how I look, I feel like this is part of the appeal, and at this point, I've been accepted the way I am. And, I take great pride in being accepted the way I am.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned Mick Foley earlier. I feel there's a lot of parallels between me and Mick Foley. And, I say that as humble as I can be. Like, I'm not comparing myself to him in any way, but I've read stuff that he's written kind of comparing us, and that's such a compliment, And like, even beyond the ring, like, I don't know, he's got a wife that's way too beautiful for him, and I'm sure he'd attest to it. I have the exact same thing. He's got great kids. I've got great kids. When we're not in the ring somewhere, we're taking the kids to, amusement parks left and right. So, like, even beyond the ring, I just see a lot of, things that I have in common with him. And he made an entire career and a great living off of being who he is.
Yeah.
And, in a way, he's a great example for me.
Is that what you do hobby-wise? Like, when you're outside the ring and you want to get wrestling out of your head, is it just, I'm going to take the kids somewhere, there's no
McDonald's Playland, man.
Play place?
Yeah. I mean,
Play place. You're a big fan.
Whenever I have a day off, I just see what my wife wants to do, and we go that way.
Sam's always available to babysit, by the way.
Very
I
nice.
am. I'm here.
He's a great
I'm a
great
great
babysitter.
mentor.
Okay.
I can teach
Really
kids a
good
lot.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, get you on a quick flight over for a Saturday night date then. But,
That's right.
Whatever my wife wants to do, it's the least I can do. She moved away from her family to come here with me. She takes care of the kids on her own when I'm not around. There's no support system here for her, But she's great, and my kids are great. So when I have a day off, I just try to make it all about them.
Right, those live-in housekeepers, that's main roster money.
Yeah, not quite there yet. No, I'm getting there, I think. Yeah.
I think so, too. Well, you heard from Kevin Owens. He's humble. He's perfect. No need to improve on anything.
All right.
And he's the next Mick Foley.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
I'm not perfect. However, I think I do great of making people accept my faults and turning them into positives. And, of course, I never said I was the next Mick Foley, but I see what you're trying to do.
One final question for you. How often do you cry in the shower?
I don't cry in the shower. I cry in the car a lot.
Do you?
Yeah, but, it's from, like, since I've had my kids, I get real emotional at the weirdest things. Like, I'll hear a news report about, I don't know, like a soldier coming home and surprising his kids at school. That's it. Oh, my God.
And it's a radio thing. It's not even seeing it.
Forget the Lifetime movies. That's
Yeah, a
all
radio
in.
ad.
Oh, I mean, I saw this video on YouTube of this news reporter interviewing a woman who had just went through tornadoes, and I think it was Ohio maybe, like a year or two ago. And she said, I lost my dog, and, I prayed to God that my dog would live through this, and he didn't, but that's okay. And as she says that, the dog pops out from behind.
I've seen the video.
Just destroyed me for about a half hour. But,
He did, like, the dog hears
It's amazing what he gets wrecked by.
the dog hears her voice out of, like, under this pile of rubble.
Right.
And goes like,
Let me clarify this. Don't take me lightly because I cry at soldiers coming home and dogs
No,
coming out of the rubble.
We're all for you
because
on
it all
this.
makes me more angry in the ring. Let's be honest. You look, I don't know.
skeptical.
Skeptical.
No,
That was great.
Yeah.
Great word. Skeptical.
I really didn't think I was going to get a legit answer, and I'm very, very pleased with it.
Hey, if
So
there's
thank
one thing
you.
about me that I think is, an advantage is I'm very genuine as much as I can.
like it.
So yeah, I cry, but
If
I
I
also
ever-
beat people up really hard. So
Yeah, if I ever end up in, like, an altercation with you or we have a disagreement, I'm just going to carry around photos of, like, kids with balloons.
Yeah,
Like, look
yeah.
how happy this kid is. Like,
I don't know. Here's the thing about I love my kids. I don't care as much about other people's kids.
Oh,
boy. Oh.
So I don't know. Maybe if you get a picture of my own kids with
That's what
balloons,
I'll do.
but then I'll be like, why do you have a picture of my kids? That's really weird, and it might just make things worse.
probably
So, I don't
would.
know. Your call.
On a scale of 1 to I want to set my computer on fire, how much does it annoy you when people post pictures of their kids on Facebook?
I don't mind it because I do it. I put my kids on Twitter. My wife has an
did
Instagram
you,
that has
Did you
my
post the
daughter and
sonogram
son.
on Facebook?
Yeah, probably. Maybe not. I didn't have a Facebook for several years. I still don't. My wife has, though, and she probably did put a sonogram on there. But I'm okay with other people doing it. I just don't
Care?
pay it. Like, my wife will do this. She'll go on Instagram, and she'll be like, oh my God, look at this baby. And I'll be like, I don't, yeah.
It's
don't
a
care.
baby.
Yeah. Is that my baby? She's like, no. I'm like,
Is it a missing dog
I don't
that we
mind.
don't care?
Dogs, cats, it's a whole other story.
Yeah, and it is ballsy, by the way, to put your family out there like that, because that is the number one way to get pissed off on Twitter, is to put people that are close to you in your personal life out there and have people comment on the photos.
Let me say this. People have been great so far. I'm surprised because, yeah, there's a lot of those people who just looking for a reason to piss you off and make one comment or, But, no, people are very respectful, and I'm very impressed. And I'm sure it might change as I get more recognition and, but at the same time, whoever that goes out and does that obviously has an empty life.
Yes.
So when I see somebody do that, if anything, I feel bad for them. And then I block them, and they're out of my life. You know what I mean?
And don't see him on the street, because he will break your face.
That's correct.
Unless you have a video of a soldier coming home.
That's correct.
I might have to cry first.
Well, Kevin Owens, thanks for hanging out. Of course, NXT is on the WWE Network every Wednesday. The big takeover special is this Wednesday, and you guys are on the road now, so it's a big, big time for you.
Yeah, it's a great time. I get to take Sami Zayn out on Wednesday at the live special, and hopefully make a lot of people cry because of that to even things out. And, one more night tonight in Philly, we're going to rock the house.
If you make people cry, it's okay to cry.
It's just a balancing act. I cry a lot, yes, but how many people do I make cry?
Right. That's the difference.
That's well played.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot for hanging out, man.
Thank you guys.